So another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. It's two people, but hey, it's kind of like the Thunderdome, Brandon. Should we get some more virtual fans into the Thunderdome to be a part of the podcast? What do you think?
I'll hard pass on that. I'm not gonna lie. I want real fans in the attendance. Maybe we can get fans for our show someday.
All right, I see you got some empty space there in the back in your basement, so maybe. We've already got a few cats roaming around. We got that going for us. As the podcast, SummerSlam week starts right now.
So silence your cell phones, hold your applause, and tune into the truth.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
Getting beat up by 9 guys in Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame in.
From the 315 to the world, this is the Heel to Face podcast.
The cream of the crop! Wow, man, freaked out!
Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Heel to the Face.
I said, are you ready?
From Armory Square in downtown Syracuse, New York, let's send it now to Brandon and Jared.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. I'm Jared Wicks. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at KRockJared. My friend Brandon Clements, you can find him at Icebreaker21. Make sure to follow the program at Heel to the Face. That's where you get all the links for both podcast and YouTube versions of the show. So a lot of fans are going to be watching wrestling all of a sudden, both AEW and WWE. We'll start with the WWE side. We'll start with Thunderdome. Earlier today, I actually saw some of the pictures. If you've been watching the NBA, it pretty much looks just like that. What do you make of this? Or do you want to be a part of the Thunderdome? Have you registered to have your face, the one we're watching right now, maybe in on a SmackDown or at SummerSlam?
I honestly, hard pass. Again, I want to get back to live audiences. I want to be in attendance to a show. You and I are supposed to be going to AEW. I mean, obviously, literally the pandemic happened a week before we were about to go to Rochester for the show. I just want to be in a crowd, in a setting. I want to be there. I don't want to be on this screen. I don't like that. I mean, it's a nice gimmick. It's a good idea. It's a good thought process, but I don't like it. I just want to be back in the arena.
I'll say this much, and I've been a huge proponent for this the entire way, going on 6 months, probably going on 60 years. But yeah, it's just a shame that with this being said, we couldn't have seen WrestleMania like this. I've seen some of the pictures. It looks kind of like a SmackDown. It looks kind of cooler than a SmackDown for the fact that you have the regular entranceway, but then you have other LED boards throughout, not just for fans, but for other visual images. We saw with WrestleMania a couple of years ago and some of the big pay-per-views like SummerSlam with the virtual graphics on the screen. They're going to obviously add a lot of that stuff into the mix. I say this much, and I've said it before. I'm not saying we could have had fans for WrestleMania. It sucks that we didn't. But this was the next best thing. This, what we're having, the Thunderdome, what's going on with SummerSlam. This looks like a big-time presentation. It's kind of annoying that they're breaking it out with SmackDown. I think they should debut it at SummerSlam instead of just SmackDown. But, yeah, I think this is way – if SummerSlam is going to look like this, it's too bad that WrestleMania couldn't have looked like this. Again, having some sort of semblance of when you tune in, it looks like a real sporting event. It looks like normal. We obviously know it's not normal because we're living in 2020, but just the visual effect. I mean, I say here and again, I was down in North Carolina for WrestleMania. I turned on WrestleMania. It was in front of no fans. My sister was watching, and she didn't think, oh, this is WrestleMania in front of no fans, because she looked at it and saw it was an absolute joke without fans, meaning there wasn't even the bleachers where fans would sit. There wasn't a normal entranceway. There wasn't any of the things that make WrestleMania WrestleMania. I actually had to turn off WrestleMania, put on last year's WrestleMania to show her what it should look like, and she was blown away because she's not a wrestling fan. So she looked at it and said, like, this isn't even comparable. This isn't like, oh, this is WrestleMania at MetLife Stadium but minus fans. No, this is two different products. At least SummerSlam this week is going to look like SummerSlam without fans. It's going to look like what SummerSlam looked like last year and what it should look like, just minus the fans. What I'm talking about is the LED boards, the graphics, the pyrotechnics, all the stuff that makes WWE not independent wrestling is all of this stuff. So I'm excited to see it full-fledged from here on out.
I'll say this. It's better than what they've been giving us. It's better than WrestleMania. I think anything is better than WrestleMania. I think we all can agree on that. I think WrestleMania...
At the start of this, that was even before they had NXT guys. that was when it was straight up silence.
Yeah, that was awful. I hated that. And I mean, the concept is, like I said, the concept's interesting. I mean, I guess it's the next best thing besides having fans. But I got that itch, man. Like, let's get back to an arena. I mean, I know it's not going to be sold out, but let's space everybody out. Let's do the whole social distancing thing, and let's get some fans in the stands somewhere. That's what I want. That's what I'm missing.
Well, then that moves us on to part number 2. If you're willing to go down to Florida, you can do that. Starting next week, AEW is going to allow fans to their Dynamite tapings. They're expecting 10 to 15% of the crowd is going to be allowed. You're not allowed to buy just one ticket. You have to buy 2 because they're going to be socially distanced, spaced apart. It's going to be like 2 seats, 5 empty seats, 2 seats, 5 empty seats, so on and so on, unless you buy more than that. They're going to be groups, meaning if you buy 2 seats, you're going to have to sit here. If you buy 5 seats, you're going to have to sit here. But the point is, everything's going to be spaced out. Everything's going to be in pod format, where everybody is socially distancing. You're going to have your temperature checked when you walked in. And frankly, I'm fine with that. And to be honest with you, I think AEW really needed to do this. And the real reason I say is because they've been having fans for the last couple of weeks, and it kind of looks snobby in my eyes because the fans that have been there have been people who are knowing in the know. I would say that. They're people who know the wrestlers. They're people who know Tony Khan. So it feels kind of snobbish that they have been allowing fans, just not the public fans. So it looks to me like, hey, that's kind of unfair. You're kind of pricing people out, meaning that, we are allowing people if you're the right kind of people. And I've seen that so far in sports in general, obviously. If you are somebody who is lucky enough to live in $1 million condo in Washington, in Baltimore, you can still watch baseball because you can look out your window and watch it. But if you think you're going to watch it from the street corner, they have police saying, no, keep moving along. This isn't free baseball. But if you're rich and can afford one of these nice hotel rooms that overlooks the stadium, have at it. And that's what I kind of felt with AEW is they're not allowing fans, but if you're somebody who knows somebody, they're still allowing somebody. So it's kind of unfair that because I'm not in the know, I can't go. And now they're saying, no, everybody can go, freely.
Looking at the glass half full as always, 10 to 15%, it's a promising start. Eventually we'll get back to full crowds, full audiences, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And I hope, of course, AEW was already at the forefront of having all the wrestlers ringside anyway, so it gave us a little bit of a feel, which WWE ended up, reusing anyways, months later. So maybe WWE can use AEW's idea once again and steal it again, and we get 10 to 15% of fans gradually work our way up to 20, 25. Eventually, we're at capacity again. I'm selfishly, I want to be in Rochester for AEW at the end of the year this year. That's the
for SmackDown on September the 25th as well. It's probably not going to happen. That's about 1 month from today, or about a month and a week. That's probably not going to happen. Just a quick question: who gets to live full fans first? Like I'm talking a normal fan setup, AEW or WWE?
AEW, because AEW they've been in the forefront of this movement. They right off the bat, they were already doing what WWE should have been doing the whole time. And WWE took, a month or 2, 6 weeks maybe, to figure it out. I think AEW is making the right move. 10 to 15% of fans in attendance coming up. WWE hasn't even thought about that. We haven't heard any reports coming out saying, yeah, we're definitely going to get 10 to 15% of the fans in. We're not hearing that.
They were trying to move it to the beach and stuff like that, where it felt like they were trying to get fans somewhat. But, yeah, I think AEW has been the one. They've been the trendsetter. They're the ones that brought back the pyro first. They're the ones that brought back the entranceway first. They're the ones that brought back the fans / wrestlers first. They're the ones that brought back the actual fans first. So I think AEW is going to be the one that brings back the full crowd.
And don't forget, they're the ones that set the camera up right to face, AEW face the entrance.
Face the entranceway and not the blank, empty wall. They've been setting the trend all the way. As we move on to the current product, we'll start with Velveteen Dream. Now, WWE has said that they have done their due diligence when it comes to bringing back Velveteen Dream following all the allegations that he had and why he was off WWE TV. But, Brandon, you're telling me that that's not enough for some fans, as Twitter is getting hot with some people not wanting to see Velveteen Dream on their TV screens.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous. I mean, it's the sign of the times. Everybody's a social media keyboard warrior at this point. They're saying that the Fire Velveteen Dream was trending this morning on Twitter. I just happened to look, and some of the comments that they were, saying to this guy about this guy was, I think it's a little, I think it's disgusting, to be honest with you. If it's true, if he did what he did, what he supposedly, allegedly, whatever you want to word it, if he actually did it, then yeah, the guy's a scumbag. Absolutely, that would be absolutely wrong. But why would WWE bring him back to programming and put him in a pay-per-view coming up this weekend for Takeover 30 if they haven't done their due diligence? WWE's not stupid. They have that Be a Bully, Be a Star campaign that they do. Why would they have Veleteen Dream on a big program, when it's, when they're telling their sponsors, hey, this guy's good, and then it comes out that he's a pedophile. That, to me, it makes no sense. The fans are jumping to conclusions. You can Photoshop just about anything these days. At this point, it's innocent until proven guilty. And if Triple H, and I'll read the snippet from Triple H. He says, quote, "Everything that we have done, we are comfortable with him continuing to do what he does and everything else. But he had a car accident. It stemmed down to people thinking he thought we removed him from TV for different reasons. We didn't. He was in a car accident." And then to continue, once he was medically cleared to be able to return to the ring from the accident, we continued forward the way we did. We looked into what was there, and we didn't find anything, end quote. That to me, I'm sorry, like, if Triple H is coming out and defending the guy, obviously there was nothing there substantial to these allegations. And again, I'm not supporting Velveteen Dream if he obviously did those things. I want to make that very clear. If he did, if it ever comes out that there's something on video or something that's concrete, then absolutely, I'm gonna disassociate myself being a fan of Veleteen Dreams. But again, if Triple H is on his side, then guess what? And he makes a comment defending the guy and puts him on TV. Guess what? He probably did enough due diligence to safely put him on. And let's say this: you don't think Vince McMahon had the final say on that? Come on. So if Vince McMahon's giving you the thumbs up, I think it's okay.
So we move on to somebody who most likely is going to be leaving WWE. That's Renee Young. Renee Young, she's probably leaving WWE. Are you surprised by this? Do you care at all that Renee Young is leaving WWE TV? What's your opinions?
I'm not surprised that she's leaving. I think Renee has not been used or utilized the way she should. She's super talented. I think she can do anything. I mean, she can go to ESPN. She can do Fox Sports. She can go to any of these sports organizations. And let's be honest, if you go back about 6 years ago, she got reached out to by ESPN, and they were trying to bring her in to work for them. So obviously she's a hot commodity in the media business and in the sports or sports entertainment world. I think if you're gonna hedge your bets on anything, she goes to AEW. I think that's the obvious choice first. But let's not discount that she could go to ESPN. Maybe they're gonna offer her enough money, or Fox Sports, where she could go into a different role, and she gets an offer that she couldn't refuse. But I would say at this point, I think she's going to AEW. That's where I'm thinking.
In WWE, she was actually the host of a professional wrestling show, like a weekly television show on The Score in Toronto. I'm not sure what the show was called, but it was a wrestling show every single week on The Score in Toronto. So she's covered sports. She's worked for, obviously, companies that cover sports outside of WWE before. It's kind of a travesty, obviously. She used to be on Monday Night Raw, the first woman broadcaster in Monday Night Raw in WWE history. Then, unfortunately, what happened with Backstage, it's just an unfortunate circumstance. They brought her over to Backstage, what she would be the host of this big-time show, and then Backstage gets canceled, so she's pretty much sitting here doing nothing. So you can't really blame her. I'm going to miss her in a way because I did think she was a unique voice. I did enjoy her more than other people, but you can't really blame her for the fact that, she just had some bad luck come her way, and the fact that they move her over to a TV show that ends up getting canceled. What else is there for her to do? I don't really think it has too much to do with her husband, Jon Moxley. No, I think it just has to be with there's just too many cooks in the kitchen, and they can't find room for her right now.
I mean, let me ask you this. If you go through the list, I mean, we could sit here for the next 5-10 minutes and list every announcer, backstage personality. How many of them are better than her, or more talented, I should say, than her? I don't think there's that many. I think, no offense to Vic Joseph, which I'm a big fan of, but that we talked about that on a podcast previous, maybe last year. It was a while back. but I think she's more talented than Vic Joseph. I think she's better than Byron Saxton. And here's the thing. The transition to another name that I've heard in the announcing game, Daniel Cormier, DC, has been, I guess he's been getting some
at UFC this past Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, that was a good fight. I mean, he got the eye gouge there where he I think what was his cornea got scratched or ripped or something. I didn't read the full report, but what I noticed is I read some interesting information that DC might be there's mutual interest for him to come to WWE, and the first thing popped in my head was Brock Lesnar, of course. Maybe they do something there. But as I kept reading the article, they were looking to maybe bring him in as a commentator. Now, before I get your thoughts on that, you know me, I'm a big MMA guy. I've never been a big fan of DC. I've always been a Bones Jones kind of guy. I've never rooted for DC in the octagon. But whenever he's been a broadcaster, he's been a caller or a play-by-play guy, the guy does a hell of a job. He's a great personality. I think he'd be great for WWE, and it would bring some legitimacy to WWE that I think they need at this point.
Well, I think if he just gets hired entirely by Fox in general, then he can kind of go all over the gambit. I think he can do Friday Night SmackDown, and then, now I guess that Fox now doesn't work with UFC anymore, but if it's possible, I think he could do UFC and WWE, because if he's just in there as a broadcasting perspective, he can just do Friday Night SmackDown or maybe Monday Night Raws, and I think it brings more legitimacy. I definitely see him more on the SmackDown side just because it's Fox. It's time. I don't see him being hired by the USA Network anytime soon.
No, I don't think so either.
Still even do the commentating on UFC fight nights and do both at the same time.
Hey, think of it this way. Mauro Ronaldo, he does double duty. He does some play-by-play commentary work for Bellator. So in his spare time, he's doing NXT and then he's doing Bellator. So it can be done. And you just got to work the contract out the right way.
It'd be great promotion. It'd be great cross promotion. Obviously, Brock Lesnar is the idea of cross promotion when it comes to UFC and WWE. And Daniel Cormier and Cain Velasquez in the past. I mean, those guys kind of help bridge that gap between UFC and WWE and the cross promoting.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be nothing but dollar signs for WWE. And let me get your thoughts on this. The possibility of DC coming to WWE, maybe strictly as a commentator, I don't buy it. I think he gets in the ring with Brock Lesnar. I mean, it would make so much sense to put him in the ring with Brock Lesnar. There's a lot of money to be made right there. You know me, I'm not a big Brock Lesnar guy. I know that's one of your guys. You've been a big supporter of his for the last few years we've been doing the show. What are your thoughts on a potential, and this is like hypothetical, we're not even close to the ink drying on the paper or anything. Nothing's there yet. But the possibility of DC versus Brock in a WWE ring, are you in or are you out?
The tough problem with that is, in this situation, who is going to agree to lose?
That's a good point. That's a valid point. Because I don't know if DC wants to give it up, and Brock Lesnar sure as hell doesn't want to give it up.
I mean, it's probably all about Brock Lesnar is a company guy. He's all about losing. He's got no problem there. But I guess because they've never put him in the ring with another former actual UFC competitor, somebody he's actually competed real life against. And that's the issue that you have if you put UFC guy against UFC guy. Because, again, it's scripted, but at the same time, they've been in the ring together in real combat. So neither of them wants to really hedge that win-loss against each other when it comes to that.
I got to fact check you on something. Brock did face somebody in the octagon that he faced in WWE, Cain Velasquez. Remember that short stint that Cain had? Cain Velasquez. They did that at the the Saudi show, one of the Saudi shows. Yes. And then Cain was gone real quick. Cain Velasquez was quick. That to me was a surprise. I thought I know he got injured, of course, but I thought Cain Velasquez would have stuck around a little bit more than he did. I know the injury kind of screwed things up. The pandemic screwed things up. To me, I thought he didn't get a long enough run to see what he can actually do in the business.
So we move on to what we've been hearing about all this week, and you've got a report as well from Dave Meltzer. I don't necessarily know if I buy it. AEW report that they've been contacted by every single person in the WWE locker room except Roman Reigns about a job there. Now, I'll give you my opinion. I think that's false because there's a lot of guys. I understand that maybe some of the low-level guys might have reached out to AEW when their contracts were coming to an end. But for the most part, especially a lot of the big-time guys, we're talking the Braun Strowmans. We're talking the Bray Wyatts. I highly doubt, especially where they are right now and where they have been the last couple of years, that they have even thought about leaving WWE to work for AEW. What's your opinion?
I'll just say this, and I agree with you 110%. I'm not a big fan of Dave Meltzer. I don't think his reporting is that great. It's like he gets a source from another source from another source. I most of the time Dave Meltzer reports anything, I brush it off. He's not usually that on top of things, and he actually gets ripped on by a lot of wrestlers. I've listened to multiple podcasts, like Jericho's ripped on him a little bit. I mean, I've heard Corey Graves. I've seen him talk stuff. Meltzer is just one of those guys. He's always looking to get clicks. He's always trying to make money off of the business for not really having those sources. The boys in the back in the locker room, I don't think they talk to Meltzer. I don't think they pull up their phone and say, "Ooh, let me tell Meltzer, hey, I'm going to talk to AEW, or maybe if my contract's up, I'm going to go to AEW." I don't buy it for a second. Meltzer, to me, he's one of the people in the business that I just. He makes it worse for a lot of fans out there, because you get reports like Dave Meltzer that are not true a lot of the times, and it makes the wrestling community just look bad, because it looks, people are like, oh, you guys have hacks like that reporting for you guys?
See, I say this. Dave Meltzer is one of the people who's been reporting for wrestling since the 80s. He is somewhat of a legitimate source for wrestling. He's been around way before the internet, before there's been a million Dave Meltzers. Back in the day when it was hard to get these scoops, when he actually had to put it in print, he was around. And I'll give him credit for that as being one of the founders of, wrestling journalism. But the problem I have with this specific story is it seems too outlandish. And the reason is, if he said 5 guys, 10 guys, a few guys, a lot of guys, but to say every single guy, there are just so many guys out there that I cannot see. There's lots of guys I could see. There's 10 or 15 guys I could absolutely see contacting AEW. But like I mentioned, the Braun Strowmans, the Bray Wyatts, the Mizes, those kind of people who are right now worried about WWE and getting through this pandemic, I don't think they are thinking about switching brands or leaving. There's a lot of guys. We're talking, The Undertaker is a good example of that. I don't think The Undertaker for 1 minute back in 1999 contacted WCW at all. I don't think Triple H contacted WCW. The Rock, Stone Cold, those guys, I don't think they contacted WCW in 1999. And those guys who are currently on the roster, the current Stone Colds, the current Rocks, like I said, Braun Strowmans, Bray Wyatts, Drew McIntyre.
I don't believe it.
I don't think that they have contacted AEW. AEW is too young of a company to have had those guys contacted, meaning that in the length of time that AEW has been in existence, Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman have been top of the company. I don't think they've had time to even absorb where they are in the top of WWE to let alone think about leaving. It'd literally be like if you were in the NBA and playing currently in the NBA Finals and thinking about what you're going to do after the NBA Finals is over, or thinking about trading teams or switching teams or leaving NBA. When you're in the middle of the NBA Finals, that is your number one thing. Yeah. Drew McIntyre, when you are currently the WWE champion,
you're not going anywhere.
You're currently the top of the company. Don't tell me you're reaching out to anybody. You're currently the face of WWE. The Miz, he currently is one of the faces of WWE when it comes to being able to have his TV show on the USA Network and being able to be in other TV shows on other networks. Because of WWE and working with WWE, he has those opportunities. I don't think he is thinking about giving up all of that in a heartbeat for another wrestler.
I'll believe it to an extent. Not that I'm not going to give Dave Meltzer much credit, because I don't really care for the guy, to be honest with you. I could see low-level talent in WWE on the main rosters, maybe considering that. You've already seen Zack Ryder. He's Matt Cardona in AEW. Let me read you something real quick. This article actually comes from the New York Post, and it's actually regarding Seth Rollins, his comments on Dave Meltzer. This is what Seth Rollins said. He said, quote, "No, Dave, my problem is that you are spreading complete lies. I gave no speech. I said nothing before, during, or after the meeting. So either you or your source is full of it. Either way, it's a bold-faced lie, and I kindly ask you to quit pushing it." That's just one of the many stories. Just for example, he was talking about there was a conversation that was supposedly leaked between Seth Rollins and Vince McMahon. Again, I don't buy Meltzer. I think Meltzer was good before the Twitterverse, and I agree with you to the extent of the 80s, 90s, and even like the WCW, WWE, WWF Monday Night Wars. I would say up to that point, but other than that, I don't give him much salt. I don't think he's as good as his job.
I think the issue that he has is now, because of all this social media, he has to stay ahead of the game to be relevant. He has to be above and beyond to be relevant. Back in the day when he was the only voice, he didn't have to do much. But now that he's in a world of a million voices, to still be Dave Meltzer and not just be some troll on Twitter, he's got to do a lot to try to get the clicks, get the views.
I get it. I mean, here's the thing, and you just proved my point for me. That's the problem with journalism nowadays. It's not the truth. It's who can get something out on Twitter or social media or just a website first. It's the first, not the most accurate. And that's the problem with media as a whole. I could talk that all night long. You know how I feel about that. I want to turn to a positive note. Our good old friend David Arquette, who we know won a particular championship about 20 years ago, right here in our backyard in Syracuse, New York. He's got a new movie coming out, the documentary. Did you see that?
I did see that, yes. And he's keeping his wrestling run. Whoever thought that was going to turn from a one-off promotion for a movie into something way more 20 years later.
And the reason why I bring this up is I saw it on Facebook. I love the title of this. It's "You Cannot Kill David Arquette." I saw the clips from it's the highlights, the preview of the movie, and I'm gonna watch it. I've always found David Arquette fascinating. I've always liked his work. I really always, you know me, I'm a huge fan of Ready to Rumble. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Of course, being a wrestling fan, I love that movie. Him and Scott Conn did a great job.
To say that's one of your favorite wrestling movies of all time, but to say that's one of your favorite movies of all time, I definitely would not condone that statement.
I will say this. I'll retract that a little bit. It's one of my favorite wrestling movies of all time. I'm more of a like the Rocky. I can go on a list. We can talk about that another time. But wrestling movies, that's definitely one of my favorites. Here's the thing. The reason why I wanted to bring it up is it's coming to drive-through theaters tomorrow night. So we're recording on Thursday. Friday, August 21st is the movie's coming out to drive-in theaters, and then you can get it on digital and on demand the following Friday. So let me ask this: are you gonna watch?
Yeah, next week or the week after, we can definitely review it. Why not? I mean, I don't know how much I'm gonna pay for it on digital, but we'll get copies of it here and be able to watch it. And of course, I mean, there's not a lot of stuff on TV right now anyway, so why wouldn't I watch?
Good point.
So let's move on now. We're moving on to this weekend. What is this weekend? NXT 30 on Saturday night, SummerSlam on Sunday. We'll start with NXT. Any matches that you think are going to steal the show this Saturday night at NXT?
You know where I'm going on this, and it might not be a technical, bout, so to speak, but I'm so looking forward to the brand, the Pat McAfee Show 2.0, aka Pat McAfee versus Adam Cole. They have been selling this super well the last couple weeks. I watched NXT last night. I have to tell you, Pat McAfee is super entertaining. I follow his stuff in the sports world as well, but he's also done some things in the wrestling business as well. And he did a great job. That segment, that little promo that they did with him and Adam Cole, and you saw UE was there, and you saw Pat McAfee's cronies there, AJ Hawk, former NFL player, Darius Butler, former NFL player. That was cool. That was a fun segment. I don't think they would give Pat McAfee this spot if they thought it was going to flop. I don't see it being like a technical savvy match like a HBK versus Bret Hart. I'm not saying it's a wrestling classic, but if it's for me, that's the must see thing of NXT 30. I'm so excited for that. And I got to ask you this real quick. Who do you think comes away victorious in that match?
I'm going to go Pat McAfee.
Me too. I think it'd be great for WWE to, again, cross brand, so to speak, because Pat McAfee has such a big following in the sports landscape. You bring him into the sports entertainment world, and then obviously Adam Cole has his video game world. You're bringing so many different entities in here. I think having Pat McAfee win would be a lot of fun.
All right, let's get some quick championship picks from you. You got Bronson Reed, Damian Priest, Cameron Grimes, Johnny Gargano, and the aforementioned Velveteen Dream for that vacant NXT North American Championship in a ladder match. Who's leaving with the brand new North American title?
I'm going to say Velveteen Dream, and I don't care. It's going to piss off a lot of people, but I think he's due for a championship. Regardless of the outside noise that neither here nor there has been proven. I think Velveteen Dream is one of the most must-see wrestlers in the business right now. So I would pick him. I will say a slight second choice. I would probably say I'd like to see Bronson Reed. I think he's really good too.
I'm going to pick Damian Priest in that match. That's who I think is going to leave with the championship. I think they haven't done a lot with him, or they've done a few things with him, but I think it's time for them to do, put the strap on him and actually kind of do more with him.
I'm okay with that because I'm a big fan of Damian Priest as well. I think it's a well-deserved push if he gets it. I mean, there's no competitor in that match that I would be upset about having the title, and I think they're all deserving. I think they all would do well with that belt.
Is Keith Lee leaving with the NXT World Championship?
No, I think the title. I think he's done. Why would you?
Short term, huh?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Karrion Kross. I think a loss for him would not be a good idea. I think a loss would push all the momentum. It would kind of put water on the fire, so to speak. So I think Karrion Kross takes over the division, and he runs roughshod for a while with that title before he eventually, with fans, gets the call up.
I'll close out the NXT 30 talk with saying that my pick for the match that is going to steal the show was going to be Finn Balor and Timothy Thatcher. That's my pick for match of the night. The ladder match obviously has an advantage to being match of the night with all the elements of a ladder match. But we'll move on to SummerSlam on Sunday night. SummerSlam 2020, not from Boston, but from the Amway Center in Orlando. You got the Tag Team Championship match for Raw on the line. The Street Profits defend their belt against Andrade and Angel Garza. Who's leaving with the Raw Tag belts?
Street Profits. I think they're going to. I think they're good.
Hair versus hair, Mandy Rose or Sonya Deville?
Mandy Rose. I think Mandy Rose deserves a push. Sonya Deville's been pretty good lately, but I think it's time for Mandy Rose to get the win and get a little more momentum.
I think this is kind of one of those. This is similar to the Vince McMahon versus Donald Trump hair versus hair match, where you already know the outcome. It's because of let's see whom is going to be willing to shave their head for WWE TV. And Sonya Deville, who is somebody who's already has that kind of UFC, that fighter gimmick that shaves the side of her head already, doesn't go for looks, goes for brass. That's kind of why I'm picking Mandy Rose. It's not necessarily that I think Mandy Rose is so much the better competitor. I think Sonya Deville seems like somebody who would be easily the one if you were to say who's going to shave their head for WWE program. I'd be very surprised, though. Mandy Rose, maybe she's a company woman. Maybe she's going to turn her model look, her beauty, and say, no, I'm all into wrestling 100% and give up her luscious blonde hair.
I'm not buying it.
Bayley with Sasha Banks versus Asuka for the SmackDown Women's Championship.
I hate to say it, but I think Asuka's winning.
Now Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship against Sasha.
Again, I hate saying it, but I think Asuka's going away with both the belts. I don't think it's a good booking move, but I think it's the most realistic and the greatest possibility of an outcome.
Dominic Mysterio, that's weird to say. He makes his in-ring debut against Seth Rollins in a street fight. I think I'm going to go Dominic. It seems like a gimmick. Got to go Dominic, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go Dominic. And to add to that, I'm excited to see what he actually can do in the ring. We saw a little bit of a glimpse of the 619 that his father that's his father's trademark move. So I'm curious. That's another thing on this weekend that I'm looking forward to. You got Pat McAfee, Adam Cole on Saturday, Dominic Mysterio, seeing how he does against Seth Rollins on Sunday on SummerSlam. I'm looking forward to that.
Apollo Crews, who some think, not many, but some think is a member of Retribution, goes against MVP for the United States Championship with Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin banned from ringside. Who's leading with the U.S. belt?
I'm going to say this. I think MVP wins the belt, and I think Cedric Alexander turns heel.
Cedric Alexander turns heel. Are you talking Apollo Crews?
Yeah, I think he's going to cost Apollo Crews.
Oh, all right. So Apollo Crews doesn't turn heel. Cedric Alexander turns heel.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. MVP's been planting those seeds with Cedric about the whole catering thing, and you can kind of see the wheels turning. They're kind of setting it up. I think Cedric Alexander is turning heel on Apollo Crews. I see it coming very, very soon. I think it happens this weekend.
All right, the two main events. We'll start with Braun Strowman versus Bray Wyatt. Who's leaving with the Universal Championship?
I'm going to say Bray Wyatt, and the reason I picked Bray Wyatt is I think Alexa Bliss plays a role in this, and I think Alexa Bliss helps Bray Wyatt get the title off of Braun's shoulder.
And Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton, who's leaving with the belt?
Drew McIntyre. Any other choice I think is not a good move. I don't think Randy Orton needs to be on the title. I think a loss for Randy Orton doesn't really hurt him as much as Drew McIntyre at this point. And plus, selfishly, I want to see Drew McIntyre holding that belt, hanging out with the fans and letting the fans serenade him with the cheers. So I got to go Drew McIntyre.
Same here. I want to see Drew McIntyre still the champion when there's actual fans in attendance. So I want him to win. I mean, this is definitely his toughest challenger yet when it comes to somebody who I could definitely see dethroning him. But and when it comes to the championship match, I see Bray Wyatt leaving with the belt. They really hyped up this whole pay-per-view around Bray Wyatt, I think. I think it's time for him to get the belt back for the first time since losing to Goldberg. He should have probably never lost it then. I think Bray Wyatt gets back his championship belt.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, speaking of Goldberg, I don't know if you saw the report. I'm sure you have. But AEW and Goldberg might be a match. What are your thoughts?
AEW and Goldberg?
Yeah.
I've seen Goldberg is still under a few years contract with WWE and wants a few more matches left. I don't see him wrestling ever again in AEW, but I would definitely see him wrestling again in WWE, not necessarily thinking that I want to. But he has said that he has a few more matches, I guess, in a contract in WWE.
Does anybody really want to see that? I don't want to see that. I think the match that sticks out to me is where he almost hurt somebody, and I think that was the Undertaker match?
Yes, in Saudi Arabia. That was a great show overall, huh? We're talking about that, all the great things that have happened over in Saudi Arabia. That's another great thing. Cain Velasquez, Goldberg, and Undertaker, Triple H tearing his quad out there. Great things happened out there in Saudi Arabia.
Well, in that tag match in Saudi Arabia with the Brothers of Destruction and Shawn Michaels and Triple H, that whole thing was bad. That whole match was just awful. And it's funny because if you go back and watch the last ride with Taker, he even admits it was a turd. So it was.
So next week we're going to review SummerSlam. We're going to review NXT. We'll even see how AEW tried to combat NXT TakeOver with their Saturday night show, as NXT beat them in the ratings this week, 855,000 to 0. So technically, I think NXT could have probably done better, because think about it, on a regular week, the two together at about 700,000 each equal about 1.4 million. So this week we only had 855,000 watching wrestling on Wednesday night. It all did go to NXT though, of course.
But I'm going to say this. I think there's a lot of diehard AEW fans that they're not watching WWE and they have no interest in WWE. So that's why I think the numbers are what they are, to be honest with you.
All right, so we will talk more wrestling and see what comes up between now and next week. Obviously, review pay-per-views and much more. For Brandon Clements, myself, at K-Rock Jared, most importantly, follow the show at Heel to the Face. Enjoy SummerSlam. This has been another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast.